Picture a Saturday morning in 1974. Mrs. Johnson stands in her kitchen in South Philadelphia, counting out crumpled bills and loose change on the Formica counter. $15. That's what she has to feed a family of 6 for the entire week. Her children won't go hungry. She'll make sure of that, but it will require strategy, creativity, and the wisdom passed down from her mother and grandmother before her. This scene repeated itself in black households across America throughout the 1970s, a decade that tested families in ways that statistics alone can never capture. While the civil rights movement had opened doors, economic inequality remained stubbornly persistent. Black families earned roughly 60 cents for every dollar white families made. Inflation climbed relentlessly, reaching nearly 14% by decade's end. Unemployment in black communities hovered around 14%, double the national average. For families like the Johnsons, every grocery trip became an exercise in survival mathematics. But here's what history often overlooks. These constraints didn't just create hardship. They forged culinary genius, strengthened community bonds, and preserved cultural traditions that connected back through generations to West Africa. Through slavery, through sharecropping, through the Great Migration. The groceries black families bought when money was tight weren't random choices. They were carefully selected links in a chain of knowledge about how to make much from little, how to feed bodies and souls simultaneously, how to maintain dignity when the world seemed determined to strip it away. Today, many of these items have vanished from store shelves or become expensive artisanal products. The reasons reveal uncomfortable truths about gentrification, cultural appropriation, and the systematic erasure of black foodways. But before they disappeared, these 20 groceries told a powerful story of resilience, creativity, and love expressed through food. Walk into any black home on a Sunday afternoon in 1975, and you'd smell them before you saw them. Neck bones and ham hocks transforming humble greens and beans into something transcendent. These cuts emerged from slavery's brutal economics, when enslaved people received the pig parts plantation owners didn't want. But black cooks recognized hidden value. Bones rich with marrow and gelatin, connective tissue that breaks down into silky collagen during slow cooking, that a single ham hock could transform a pot of pinto beans into a meal that fed 8 people. The technique was passed mother to daughter, grandmother to grandchild. You started them in cold water with onions and bay leaves, brought everything to a boil, then reduced to a simmer for hours. The meat would eventually pull away from the bone, and the broth would turn rich and cloudy. This wasn't fast food. It was slow food before that term existed, requiring time that demonstrated love and commitment. Mrs. Johnson's 10-year-old daughter, Keisha, would stand on a step stool beside the stove, watching her mother tend the pot, learning that good things require patience. By 2025, these once cheap cuts now sell for $6 per pound at specialty markets. What changed? When upscale restaurants discovered nose-to-tail eating, these ingredients got swept into the gourmet marketplace, pricing out the communities who had relied on them for generations. Every seasoned shopper knew the store layout intimately, but one section commanded special attention: the discount bread rack, tucked near the bakery. Here, loaves past their sell-by date, but perfectly edible sold for half price. For families stretching every dollar, this wasn't settling. It was strategic shopping that demonstrated financial wisdom. The bread industry prioritizes shelf appearance over actual spoilage. Bread one day past its printed date typically remains at peak flavor. If it had firmed up, grandmothers had solutions: French toast on Sunday mornings, bread pudding for dessert, breadcrumbs for coating fried chicken, or croutons for salads. Smart families bought multiple loaves on sale, storing extras in the freezer where bread keeps for months. This practice connected to broader traditions of resourcefulness born from necessity. During segregation, when black families were often barred from the best stores, they learned to extract maximum value from whatever was available. There was no shame in discount shopping within the community, quite the opposite. Being known as someone who could feed a family well on limited resources earned respect. Church ladies shared tips about which stores marked down bread earliest, creating informal networks that helped entire neighborhoods stretch their budgets. In nearly every black household, a large box of powdered milk sat in the cabinet above the refrigerator. This was an emergency backup For many families, it was the primary milk source, chosen for pure economic mathematics. Fresh milk was expensive and spoiled quickly, especially in homes with older, less reliable refrigerators. Powdered milk cost a fraction of the price and could sit in the pantry for months. The ritual became familiar. Scoop powder into a pitcher, add cold water, whisk vigorously to break up clumps, then shake before every pour. The result was thinner, with a slightly off taste that never matched fresh milk's creamy richness. Children could definitely tell the difference, often complaining about the chalky aftertaste. But parents emphasized that milk was milk, and growing bodies needed calcium regardless of taste preferences. Some mothers tried to improve the taste by mixing powdered milk with a small amount of fresh milk, creating a blend that stretched the expensive product while improving flavor. The practice reflected broader patterns in Black food culture, making do with what was available while finding ways to make it palatable. Powdered milk worked adequately in cooking. Cornbread, pancakes, and macaroni and cheese masked its distinctive taste. For cold cereal, children learned to eat quickly before the milk warmed, which intensified the off flavor. Few items symbolized 1970s Black food culture more powerfully than government cheese and peanut butter. These commodities arrived in plain packaging, no brands, no marketing, just straightforward labels. The cheese came in 5-pound blocks wrapped in simple paper. Peanut butter filled large, generic cans. For struggling families, these provided essential protein and calories, though they carried the complex weight of being labeled poor people's food. The government cheese was genuinely exceptional, processed cheese food with a dense, creamy texture that melted beautifully. It wasn't individually wrapped American cheese slices. This was something substantial and flavorful. Savvy cooks recognized its qualities. Perfect for grilled cheese sandwiches that emerge golden and gooey. Ideal for macaroni and cheese. Excellent for cheese grits. The 5-pound block could last a family 2 weeks if carefully rationed. The peanut butter was smooth, thick, and intensely peanut-flavored. It lacked the added sugar of commercial brands, making it taste more savory than sweet, an adjustment for children expecting Skippy or Jif. But it was protein-dense and filling, making sandwiches on day-old bread a lunch that sustained children through afternoon classes. Accessing these programs required navigating bureaucracy, standing in long lines at distribution centers, and dealing with implicit stigma. Yet community networks made these trips social occasions, with neighbors sharing information and comparing recipes. Children learned early about economic realities and class consciousness, but they also absorbed lessons about resourcefulness and community support that in grocery stores serving Black neighborhoods. You'd find thick slabs of fatback and salt pork selling for remarkably low prices, cuts that mainstream shoppers increasingly ignored as health consciousness grew. But Black cooks understood that fat is flavor, and in poverty's context, it's also essential calories and satisfaction. Fatback and salt pork served multiple purposes. Rendered slowly in a cast-iron skillet, they produced pure lard for cooking, the foundation for everything from fried chicken to flaky pie crusts. The crispy pieces left after rendering became prized snacks or additions to cornbread. A small piece tossed into greens, beans, or cabbage would release its fat, infusing the entire dish with rich, smoky depth. This ingredient connected directly to African American culinary heritage. During slavery, enslaved people received minimal rations, cornmeal, salt pork, and whatever vegetables they could grow. They learned to coax maximum flavor from limited ingredients, developing techniques that transformed poverty rations into distinctive cuisine. By the 1970s, these methods had been refined across generations. Grandmothers kept jars of rendered fatback grease on the stove, using it throughout the week. Nothing was wasted. Every drop served a purpose. This zero-waste approach reflected both necessity and cultural values around resourcefulness. Today, as heritage cooking experiences revival, fatback has become harder to find and more expensive. The knowledge of how to use it has also faded, with younger generations less likely to have learned these techniques. During the 1970s, you could buy oxtails for under $1 per pound because butchers considered them waste products. Black families knew better, understanding that these gelatin-rich bones would transform into melt-in-your-mouth meat after hours of slow cooking, creating a dish worthy of Sunday dinner despite costing less than ground beef. Oxtails require long, moist cooking to break down tough collagen into silky gelatin. After 3 or 4 hours of gentle cooking with onions, garlic, and seasonings, the meat falls off the bone, and the braising liquid becomes rich, glossy gravy. The preparation was often a Saturday task, finished on Sunday for the week's main meal. The house would fill with the smell of browning meat and simmering aromatics, a scent that signaled abundance even in scarcity. Children learned patience through oxtails. This dish couldn't be rushed, teaching that good things require time and attention. By the 2000s, as foodie culture embraced peasant food and nose-to-tail eating became trendy, oxtails transformed from cheap protein into expensive delicacy. They now cost $10 to $15 per pound, making them unaffordable for families who had relied on them for generations. This gentrification of ingredients has priced Black communities out of their own culinary traditions. Open the pantry in nearly any Black Southern household, and you'd find a large bag of stone-ground grits. Not quick-cooking variety, but real, coarsely ground corn requiring slow cooking and constant stirring. This staple, descended from Native American hominy preparations and refined through generations of Black Southern cooking, provided cheap, filling nutrition. True stone-ground grits require 30 to 45 minutes of cooking, with regular stirring to prevent burning and lumps. The transformation is remarkable. Dry granules absorb water and swell, releasing starch to create creamy, smooth porridge with subtle corn sweetness. Grandmothers taught this alongside other kitchen lessons, using grits as an introduction to the discipline cooking demands. For breakfast, grits arrived steaming hot, topped with butter, salt, and pepper, the savory version preferred in most Black households. Leftover grits would be poured into a loaf pan, chilled until solid, then sliced and fried for another meal. These fried grit cakes, crispy outside and creamy inside, complemented fried fish or collard greens perfectly. Culturally, grits connect to deep roots in African and Native American foodways. Enslaved Africans recognized corn as similar to their native millets and developed techniques, drawing on both African knowledge and indigenous lessons. The resulting dishes became foundational to Southern Black cuisine. Open the refrigerator on a Tuesday afternoon, and you might find liver soaking in milk or chicken gizzards waiting to be seasoned. These organ meats represented cheap, protein-dense options requiring skill to prepare properly. Skills that transform challenging ingredients into beloved dishes. Nutritionally, liver is a powerhouse, rich in iron, vitamin A, and B vitamins. For Black families dealing with nutritional deficiencies exacerbated by poverty, liver provided essential nutrients at a fraction of steak's cost. The challenge was liver's strong flavor. The solution? Soaking in milk for hours, then dredging in seasoned flour and pan-frying with onions. The result? Tender, flavorful protein. Chicken gizzards pose different challenges. They're naturally tough, requiring either long braising or brief, hot frying. Black cooks typically chose the latter. Clean meticulously, season aggressively, then drop into hot oil until golden and crispy outside, while tender within. Served with hot sauce and white bread, they became treats. These foods also carried cultural weight. In West African cuisines, organ meats have always been valued. Enslaved Africans brought these traditions to America, where they merged with necessity. By the 1970s, eating organ meats had become cultural identity, a connection to ancestral foodways. As Mrs. Johnson finishes preparing Sunday dinner, neck bones with collard greens, cornbread made with day-old buttermilk, and a pitcher of bright red Kool-Aid. Her children gather around the table. They don't know yet that this meal represents centuries of accumulated wisdom, that every ingredient tells a story of survival and creativity, that the techniques their mother uses connect them to ancestors who refused to let poverty diminish their tables or their dignity. These 20 groceries weren't just food items. They were tools of resistance, expressions of love, and bridges between past and future. They fed bodies, certainly, but they also fed souls, maintained traditions, and built community. When these items began disappearing from stores, some becoming too expensive, others deemed unprofitable for modern supply chains, something more than groceries was lost. Cultural knowledge vanished. Connections to heritage frayed. Cooking techniques that had survived slavery and segregation faced extinction from economic forces and changing food systems, but the story doesn't end there. Across America today, young Black cooks are reclaiming these traditions, seeking out the recipes their grandmothers knew by heart, learning to cook oxtails and prepare chitlins, understanding that food is history made edible. They're documenting these dishes online, teaching new generations, and insisting that Black foodways deserve recognition as sophisticated cuisine worthy of respect and preservation. If these memories resonated with you, share your own stories in the comments below. What groceries do you remember from childhood? What dishes did your family make when money was tight? Your experiences are part of this history, and they deserve to be remembered and honored. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more explorations of Black history and culture that mainstream narratives often overlook. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our journey through the moments, meals, and memories that shape generations, because when we remember these groceries, we're not just being nostalgic. We're preserving knowledge, honoring ancestors, and ensuring that the creativity, resilience, and love that filled Black kitchens in the 1970s continues inspiring us today. This is our heritage. These are our stories, and they deserve to be told.